Let's make some cowboy steaks.
What we have here is a whole bone-in ribeye in a cryovac bag, and it's USDA choice, and it's also Angus. And what we're going to do is we have a big camp coming up and we need a bunch of steaks. So we're going to take this whole ribeye and cut it into cowboy steaks. So we'll get this out of the bag and onto the board. Okay, we've got the rib roast out of the cryovac and we got it all dried off. And we're going to use this Victorinox 6-inch semi-flex boning knife. I've been trying this out. It's in a couple of my other videos. I've been starting to like it pretty good. I'll put a link to it in the description box so you can find it on Amazon. It doesn't show up on there easily. A lot more expensive ones do, but this one doesn't. But I'll put a link in the box. Anyway, I'll turn this over so you can get a look at the other side. And you can see, each one of the rib bones in here. And we're just gonna cut in between those and divide them up. We'll probably end up with a roast down on this end, and these will be steaks. So we'll get right to it. Okay, we're going to just go right in between each of these rib bones. You can see the ends of them right here. We're just going to let the ribs determine the size of the steak. And I want to start up here at the top and work my way towards the bottom part, because there's another bone up here that we want to get around. There's some sawed off ends up here. Now let's move this over here for just a second. And we talked about this earlier. This is a choice steak, and you can see it's got pretty good marbling in it here. Now if you buy these steaks just at the butcher shop, they're going to be somewhere around the $12 or $13 a pound when they're already cut like this. But we'll go through this whole thing and get it ready. And it's really not a hard butcher job. It's probably one of the easier ones if you're going to leave the bone in. Let's get another one done here. What I'm doing is I'm marking right between these two bones. You can't see it on the camera, but I can see the ends of them right here. So that's where I'm getting my mark. Then I'm just trying to make, real nice long strokes through. This boning knife is not the ideal tool for this, but we're using it today just to show you that you can do a lot with this little knife. So let's get on through these steaks. And that's got a lot of fat in it. I'm real happy with that. Okay, what we did here is we just Frenched this bone And the piece that we took off of, we're going to save that for some stew meat. It's perfectly fine. And we did trim this one a little bit. Now I'm going to show you what to do with this first end that you got that it was sitting on the board like this, and we made the first cut here, and it's a little bit thick for what we want. And this end here is the raw edge, and we don't want that on our steak for the grill. So we're gonna go to this bone here, and we're gonna come off this side of it the same distance that we got over here, and just straighten this steak up a little bit. I'm just going to mark it there. Okay, now we got that steak trimmed up. And this you could just make as a breakfast steak if you want, or for most people that's a regular steak, but it's boneless obviously. Or we may just cut this up and put it into our stew meat, which is what I'm probably going to do. So I'll set this aside for now. And let's get to doing this Frenching. Now, just as a rule of thumb, I just use 2 fingers width on it to go down to the bone. And we'll be trimming some of this fat anyway. But I'll show you a couple things that'll be kinder to your knife here. When you make this cut, you're going to be cutting down into this bone, and there's bone skin around it. And that bone is going to dull your edge of your knife. And most of the time when you're using your knife, you're using this part of it out here. So what we want to do is use this part down here to do the cutting so we don't ruin our blade. So we're going to do this 2 fingers, more or less. And I'm just going to rock that thing around there so I'm not using up my blade. And come back. Now, I'm going to get underneath that bone skin right there and cut that. I'm not cutting the bone here. I'm just cutting next to it. And the only reason you don't need to do this, we're just doing it because it looks cool on a grill. Okay, once you got this off, you can trim this up, make stew meat out of it, or grind it. And then what I see a lot of people doing is they come in here and they take their knife and they scrape that off, and then it just kills the edge of your knife. What you could do is just take the back of your knife and drag that bone skin off there. Then come back and trim off the very little bit, just like that. See how nice and clean that is? Now, it doesn't have to be that clean. You can leave it, you know, with some on there, but it just looks better. And we got a little bit too much fat right here, so we're gonna selectively trim that. We don't want to trim all the fat off of this steak. You know, that's a lot of flavor. So we took off some of that. A little piece here we'll get rid of. Don't want to start a big fire on the grill. And this fat cap, I always like to trim just a little bit of that off. And there we got a cowboy steak. So I'm going to go through the rest of them, and then I'll bring you back to show you what the whole pile looks like. Okay, we got our rib roast reassembled out here, just to show you what it looked like before we started. And we did end up trimming each one of these end steaks to equalize them a little bit. And we got about a pound of trim here from what we trimmed off the ends and what we Frenched off the bone. And we got about a pound of fat. All these steaks ended up being just a little over 2 inches or 2 inches. And this is a pretty easy butchering project for you to start out with. All you really need is a knife. You know, if you got a good knife, doesn't have to be this one, just a good sharp knife. Matter of fact, a big butcher knife would actually probably make this job a little easier, except doing this work down here. This work you need a boning knife. So anyway, that pretty much wraps it up. Thanks for watching and hope you give it a try. So we ended up netting about 20 pounds of steaks. No, that's wrong. Duh. This started out at 21 pounds, so we got 2 pounds coming out of it for the fat and the trim. I can't think today. Anyway, it is kind of hard to find because I'm an idiot.